This here is Cades Cove. This is what it looked like in the early 1900s. This picture was taken probably from Rich Mountain. It's just like any other community Cades Cove was, up and down these Appalachias. A thriving community at one time before it became a national park. Beautiful place. And they had to depend on each other. They had about anything they wanted. At one time, at its height, there was 700 people lived in the cove, 137 homes, 12 cemeteries, not to count the barns, sawmills, churches, stores, even a grist mill. They depended on each other and they were self-sufficient. Now the first people to come in this old cove, first person documented was John Oliver in 1818. Then the next person, the last person to leave here was a Kermit Calhoun. He left in 1999. I reckon when the park took it, they could let people live the rest of their life until the last person left the park. And that was in 1999. And it's a beautiful place here. Now I'm going to share with you 6 untold stories of Cades Cove back in the early days. Now a couple of these are known, but not really known by many people at all. And I guarantee you 3 or 4 of them has never been heard. This comes from a good friend of mine I want to introduce you to. We spent a day over here in the cove a couple of weeks ago, and he took me around a lot of old places. And this is just a few of his stories. Now he comes from the 4th generation of people that come from the cove. His name is John McCullough, a good friend of mine. And his family come in here, his great-grandfather come in here in the late 1870s. And he's the 4th generation born from this cove. So I want to share some of the stories he shared with me. Now here's the Cades Cove loop map. Now none of these sites that I tell you, except for the Primitive Baptist Church, will be on this map. So I made my own little map. Here's the loop, and I'm going to show the places with stars on them marked in yellow. First up, Gregory's Cave. Now this is not unknown, but not many people knows about it at all. So this is one of the stories. Here it is. This is Gregory Cave. It's just a short walk, probably 300 yards up from the road, just past the John Oliver house. And this is what she looks like. It looks like it's open, but 10 foot inside it, they got bars up. So the park's got it closed off. You can't go any further in it. And here's some, I guess, a map of it from the Caves of Tennessee book. It shows the cave and the description of it, because it's been explored out and mapped and all that time, a long time ago. The old book here, it even gives the location of it, right down to it. Now they used to give tours years ago in this old cave. Back in 1925 up to 1935, they did give tours way back. But it's all gone now. It's just closed off, and groups still go in there, but you got to get permission from the park where they study the cave. Now I reckon it was a commercialized cave at one time, from 1925 to 1935. They had lights in it, had boards and walkways, and they sold tickets to the visitors. Now on the way up here, you know you're on the right trail, because halfway between the cave and the road, there's some old picnic tables in a little growed up field. I didn't film them, I wished I had. But there you go. There's Gregory's Cave. Not many people knows about it. Number 2 on the list is the Pearl Harbor tree. You know, it's not unknown, But I didn't know about it till my friend told me about it here a few months ago. Described this to me. But most people don't know about this thing, so I'm going to show it to you. Now here's a picture standing out in the fields that you drive around and see. This is looking back towards the house. You can see the cattle moving from left to right there. That's cattle. And between the cattle and that house up on top, that's the Cades Cove loop road. This is before it all growed up. Probably about the time the park took it, or a little bit before. But that in yellow is the Pearl Harbor tree. It's all growed into big woods now. But that's what she looks like. An old picture. And here's the house of the guy that planted the tree. It's a Goldman Myers. That house you see sitting up on the hill there. All that was clear pasture land at one time, but it's all growed up. The house is gone, and it's all grown back into woods. Nature's took it back. And we walked up there. It probably ain't 100 yards off the main loop road. We walk up there and just deer walk right by us just like cattle, like we ain't even there. But here's the Pearl Harbor tree. You can see it here. Look at all the flags around it. So there is a lot of people does know, but the majority don't know. Well, here's what it looks like. I'll pan around here. It's an old Model T rim sit around a little sampling tree years ago, 1941 during Pearl Harbor. I'm just panning around to show it to you. The trees growed into it and it split the rim apart. Now there's a story behind this, and I'm going to let my good friend tell you the story on it. I'm just panning around here showing you what's on this tree.
This is what is known as the Pearl Harbor tree. Goldman Mars, who lived in Cades Cove, his house sat right here on this hill. All of this was cleared then. And he had two boys that was in the Army. When Pearl Harbor was bombed December 7th, 1941, he brought a little sweet gum sapling down here and set it out in honor of that. And he put an old rim off of a T model. You can see it right here. He put that over around that little tree, and it's growed into this. And it's growed into that rim. That rim separated. That tree's a lot bigger than the rim was. But I think his boys, I think it was Theodore and Cleo was his two boys that was in the Army at the time. But that's been there since 1941. And I don't know exactly when Goldman moved out of Cades Cove, but he was still living here in 1941. A lot of the people that lived in here, they leased from the park and stayed in here and farmed. But that has been here a long time. And a lot of people that knows about it comes here and kind of honors it and puts flags up and some of their little plaques. But this is kind of it's not advertised, or it's not, you know, it's off of the beaten path a little bit. But you can see there is a lot of people knows about it too. But that's what that is.
Well, that's a good old story. I didn't know that story myself. Went by it dozens of times. And you can see a lot of people leave their little flags, and especially veterans, they come up here and pay their respects to this tree to honor it. All right, there we go. Next up on the list, number 3, Primitive Baptist Church. This one's not hard to find, and it is on the Loop Road maps. It's a little gravel road that comes off the Loop Road, goes to it. And here it is. It's the oldest church in the Cove. One of the first churches, well, it is the first church that's built in the Cove. A nice old church, a lot of history here. And you can see 1827 when it was built, organized. Wonder how many souls has been saved here. Many. A lot of time. Here's some old pictures of it too. And the old graveyard back behind it. Way back. And the graveyard behind it has some really old graves back here, the old pioneers in here. Some marked, some not. It's old. Beautiful place. Peaceful. And it's a crowded place too on certain days. I'm trying to film without getting everybody in it. There's a lot of time and history went through here. Beautiful old church. Beautiful time of year too. And I'll walk inside here and we'll show you the story. Now you notice this board right here, right dead center with that big crack in it right down the front of me. That's what the story is based on. And I'll get to that in just a minute. We will walk in here. There's where the old stove used to sit. The old stove that kept the church warm on the winter. Here's an old picture of it. A long time ago. We walk on in here. Looks like some little child that lost her little shoe here. We just left it lay. Somebody will pick it up. Well, here's the church looking back out at the pulpit. Now look down right here. You see that shinier board there right in the middle? That old story goes, John's grandmother told him that the church was having a little problem being divided. Some wanted to stay Primitive Baptist and some wanted to be missionary work and wanted to go the other way like missionary Baptist. So there's a little conflict in the church. And his grandmother claimed that the church split apart. Well, it did. There was a big old crack come down through there, like the floor was separating. And that's just what the old women wives' tales said, that the church had a conflict and it was splitting down the middle. But it was just a foundation slipping around. So the part when they took it, they replaced all that board through there. But you can see that's a story that nobody knows about. Just a little old story. So I thought I'd share that with you. So that's the Primitive Baptist Church. We drive on around through the loop there, on past the cable mill, and head up towards Parsons Branch Road. We park in a little parking lot that goes to the Gregory Trail up the mountain. And we'll be looking at the next number 4 is the Post family. A nice little story that not many at all ever knows about this one. And we'll let John share this story with you. He knows so much about it.
This is an area here where the Post family lived back in the mid-1800s. Mary Florence Post, the wife of Calvin Post, she planted the holly tree here. And at one time, there was a spring here. It's all filled in now. You can see a little water down there. But they put that little plaque in that holly tree. And it growed into it. Well, the little holly tree eventually died. And the park come in here and took that plaque and put it on a little marker so it wouldn't be forgotten. And there's Post Cemetery right up above us here. We're gonna walk up there and look at it, where it was a family cemetery from these people. But that's the story on that little thing right there.
And here's what's left of the holly tree. You can see it just, there's the old stump, and the sprags coming out of it trying to survive. And here's the Post family. John Calvin Post and his wife Martha Wallace Thompson Post. And here's a little graveyard about 100 yards up the hill above it. Somebody put a new marker up or you'd never know nothing about it. It's just stones. And he put a fresh new marker up here. Somebody's keeping it clean. Of his daughters. Right on the side of this ridge up here. Just 100 yards up from that little holly tree sign. Beautiful place here. Lost in time. And we head on out of there, and we walk just a short piece from there to number 5, the Spring Sink Dugout. This is something that probably nobody knows about. Here's another little unknown story of the cove. Show you some history on it.
Yeah, this is a spring coming out from under that rock. Some of you good mountain springs. And there was a feller, I did know his name, but I forgot it. Come down here and chiseled out looked like a little sink. He chiseled out a little place for the water to catch. You can see it running off right here. And right there is a little frog that's kindly made his home here. But he'll have to do something before too long because it's going to get so cold he won't be able to stand it.
What year was that chiseled out, John?
I have no idea what year that was. But they was a friend of mine. She had ancestors here in the cove and she's done a lot of history on it. I asked her, she knowed about it. And I asked her who chiseled it out and she told me, and I forgot the name. But they went to a lot of trouble to chisel them out a little hole here. It gets full of leaves. Ain't nobody knows nothing about it.
That had to be before the park come in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'd say it was.
We're talking at least 100 years ago.
I'd say it was chiseled out a long time ago.
Right under this bank. Laurel thicket right above it.
Yeah, people walking, they walked a lot. Or rode their wagons or
Place
whatever.
to get them some water.
They'd stop and get them a good cold drink right here. I've been meaning to bring me a little piece of a cane pole or something, a holler section, and lay in here and put a rock on it for it to run out, but I guess if the park seen it, they'd tear it out and throw it away. So.
And this is just off the Parsons Branch Road. You just start on it, right beside the creek.
A couple of 100 yards up here where you cut off on Parsons Branch Road on the left.
Part of history that nobody knows about.
It's across from this little road that goes up to that graveyard we're going to walk up to.
Beautiful country.
If you're ever up this way and you want to try to look it up, why, it ain't that far up Parsons Branch Road.
Another unknown story of the cove. And finally, a final story, number 6, the Bourne family. Not a short walk from this dugout, just across the road. Well, here's another little forgotten graveyard back in the middle of nowhere on Cades Cove, up on the Parsons Branch Road. I'll let John tell you some history on it. Go ahead, John.
Okay, that little spring we was looking at, just about right straight across from it. Little road comes up here about 200 yards off. There's a little graveyard here. It's got 4 graves in it. And that is the wife and 3 children of the Reverend Willie Willie or William Boring. And as you can see with this marker, Millie A. Rollins was his wife, and then, or either Millie Boring, and then two of the Thompson Boring, but they died of typhoid. Back during them years, there was a lot of that going on. Late 1800s, early 1900s. A lot of children you see in these graveyards around here. Small children, a lot of them died of that. Of course, they didn't have the means they have today.
These graveyards are full of kids, babies.
Yeah.
Full of them. You don't even know who half of them are.
I would say that he planted these two cedar trees, and you can see the bears just took them over as their marking trees.
Yeah,
We've seen 2 or 3 piles of bear scat coming up the trail here.
See the bear been marking these trees. That's 6 foot high right there. Big old cedars.
Markings on them.
You can see where they've scratched it over time, right there. There's some fresh scratch. They're marking their territory right here in this graveyard.
They like a cedar tree for some reason. Cedar or a little pine.
This is a quiet, lonely note.
But this William Boring, he moved out of here and moved down around Calderwood, and he's buried down around Calderwood. Him and maybe some more of his children. But he moved out of this area. He was living in here when his wife and them 3 girls died. He was married again. I don't know if this was his second wife or his first one, but I think he was married again. And I looked him up on Google, and it had a picture of him with his youngest daughter. She's a little girl. But a lot of times passed since then. Lonely place up here, but I don't guess it matters. When it comes your time, don't matter where they put you. You're not going to be there anyway.
Amen. Well, there you go. I want to give one little final note. One final little story here of the McCully family and their home site. They just not short from here. There's his grandfather's house. Right on the side of the ridge here, not far from where we're at. And here's his grandfather, John McCully, 1880 to 1961. And this is the one that gave the interview. Such a lovely place. Thanks, John and his family. Long time here in the old cove. So much history here. And you know there's just so much history here in the cove. With 700 people at one time and all these families. So many stories to be told that we don't even know about. And then so many's forgotten in time that nobody will ever know about. So we're just trying to remember little stories of the common man. So I hope you enjoyed. This is just a little series of stories that I've shown about this. I'll put out one about the cable mill, one on itself, and the old houses, and the churches. I mean, it's just so many stories to be told about these Appalachians, especially Cades Cove. So I want to thank you for watching. From me and my old buddy John, which I'd never know nothing about these if it wasn't for him, I want to thank him for sharing. So, y'all take care, God bless, and I'll see you next time.